Yo, what the fuck is good, everyone? So welcome to the first Ghost Q&A video. But before we get into that, I just want to say May 22nd is an official Beatbox holiday. Congratulations to Double Team and the Young Drug for making it into the GBB crew category. Apparently, there was a vacancy in one of the time slots because there's a Beatbox House Showcase that was originally supposed to be there that is apparently not there anymore. So they used the extra time to bring in a few extra crews for the crew battle. And I just want to compliment Swiss Beatbox for being receptive to the feedback. Yeah, that's apparently what I heard. And I am very happy about this news. It's definitely something that we can celebrate. But yeah, besides that, this is going to be my first Q&A video. I basically made a post on Instagram and I also made a post on the YouTube community thing, inviting people to ask questions. So I would talk about the topics that people want to hear about. So I wrote down the questions for the Instagram one first. So I'll go through all the Instagram questions first, and then afterwards I'll go through all the YouTube questions. This might end up being a pretty long video because there were a lot of questions. And as you guys know, a simple question could lead me to yap for a really long time. So what I'm going to do is at the bottom, I'm going to label the different sections. So if there's certain questions that you don't really care about, or there's certain questions that you want to hear more about, you can skip around in the video and watch what you like. So yeah, let's get started with the Instagram questions, and then I'll go into the YouTube questions. And with the Instagram questions, I also got a couple questions on Discord too. So I'll just combine it with the Instagram questions. The first question, this wasn't the first question I was asked, but I'm just going to start out with this one because I think it's an interesting one. Who is the most influential beatboxer of all time? So to me, and I might be completely wrong about this, there's probably people who know much more about this topic than I do, but it's either Dougie Fresh or B-Lo. I know those are two very divergent answers, so hear me out. Dougie Fresh, this is one of the more, I guess, conventional answers. Basically, Dougie is a rapper and a music producer. He brought beatboxing into his music creation process by replicating drums and stuff. So he was called the human beatbox, hence the name of the art form. I don't know if that was exactly where it was derived from, but it seemed to have a lot to do with it, and seemed to be one of the roots of why it's called beatboxing in the first place. And Dougie Fresh was mainly doing this in a hip-hop environment. And as you guys know, hip-hop kind of became the plant that beatboxing grew within. The foundation of beatboxing is often considered to be hip-hop, and Dougie was the person who popularized it in that way. There's also a lot of other legends that popularized it in different ways, Biz Markie kind of showed the orchestration elements of it. Bobby McFerrin, I don't know if he's technically considered a beatboxer or not, but he was one of the most famous and most prominent and skilled vocal performers that influenced a lot of the beatboxers that we know today. Yeah, of course, there's also Razel, Kenny Muhammad, probably a lot of people that I'm missing. But B-Lo, I would say, is the more modern, most influential beatboxer. So in 2005, B-Lo created a competition. You guys might know this one, where beatboxers would do 90-second rounds. And one person would do a 90-second round, then the other person would do the 90-second round, and they would pass it back and forth, and then judges would decide on a winner. What does that sound like? To me, that sounds like every fucking beatbox battle that's ever happened since then. So B-Lo was the one who organized the first World Beatbox Championship in 2005, and that is pretty much the reason why we do most things today, like the 90-second rounds, the passing back and forth, the bracket format. A lot of it comes from that championship specifically. I think it might have been the first official modern beatbox battle, beatbox competition, and clearly we have not strayed far from that format since then. Obviously, we've tried different formats, but this seems to be the one that's really stuck throughout time. And of course, that's only one of B-Lo's contributions. Continuing to do the world championships, which brought a lot of views and a lot of top talent to the spotlight. And just this overall involvement in the community, it's got to be either Dougie or B-Lo. So that's my answer to that one. So next question. This is not related to beatboxing. How do I improve my Smash playing? Okay, so when I was 12 years old, I joined a Super Smash Bros. Brawl clan. That was when Nintendo first started doing the really shitty online. So they started forming clans on game FAQs and stuff like that. I joined one of them, and I remember one of the ways I try to get better at the game was playing 10 matches with every character. And I only got through like 8 of them. I think I got impatient and stopped doing it. But I did get a lot better at those like 8 characters that I played 10 matches with. So I guess you could do the same thing. Like obviously it's going to take a lot longer with Smash Ultimate because it's a huge roster. But yeah, if you have the time to play 10 matches with every character, like maybe you'll pick up a few more secondaries. And if you don't even pick up the secondaries, maybe you will like improve your basics or just like know like the frustrations or the strengths of each character. So when you play against that character, you might have, you know, better chances and stuff like that. So that's always how I like to improve at Smash and video games in general is I try to play every character and learn like, oh, this character that I really suck at playing against, like I really suck at fighting Heatran in Pokemon. Let me try playing Heatran so I can know his strengths and weaknesses, and then maybe I could play against Heatran better. I know that's a really random example, a really random Pokemon on Pokemon Showdown that is, but yeah, like I think just playing different characters in video games and like learning their pain points and their strengths is a really good way to get better at any game. And I think Smash is especially true because that's like kind of a game you have to feel out. American champs under American Beatbox or Beatbox House? I think the answer to this one is, no offense, pretty obvious. Like I think American Beatbox put a lot of work into it, but you know, between the 100 something dollar tickets, I'm not even kidding about that. Like I'm not kidding. And like when you go to this event after paying the 100 something dollar ticket, it seems like the point of the event is kind of to like rub shoulders with legends and kind of like toot their own horn about like legacies and stuff like that, rather than like focus on the competitors. It was just weird. I mean, obviously, like everyone else noticed it as well. There's a reason why I transitioned to Beatbox House, and it's because there was a lot of dissent around American Beatbox running it, and that's why it eventually transferred over to Beatbox House, especially with, you know, like Chris Solis, Napalm, Kenny Urban, Gene, and Amit. They had a huge involvement in every facet of American Champs beginning with 2024, and I think they deserve it because one of the biggest contributions to the American scene, and if you were there for it, you know it, are the house parties, the Beatbox house parties that they would host like every month. One of them was in the basement of like the Bushwick bar. I think it was called like Bushwick Public House or something like that. I forgot the name, but it was like at there like every month in the basement. And then it was at an apartment. And I guarantee you these parties were huge ways for new beatboxers to come along and improve their skills, for people to regularly compete and practice, and for beatboxers to meet and connect with other beatboxers. I made a ton of friends. I got a lot of practice through these Beatbox house parties, and I would say it's a large part in how the American scene moved forward is through these house parties. So they kind of deserve ownership of the American champs if you look at it from that perspective. Now, I will say that one thing that American Beatbox does better than Beatbox House is like the marketing aspect. Like Beatbox House, they've always just like advertised their shit by like making like a text note on Instagram or something like that, and just like relying on that being shared around. They're not the biggest like marketing people. They're more about like the spirit and the vibe, but I think that's like one of the most important things is like whenever they make their events, they always prioritize the competitors. They were like that with the Beatbox house parties, and they were still like that for each American champs that I've seen them do, 2024 and 2025. I really like the spirit of both events, and it was really exciting. And I could see how hard they worked. So yeah, I mean, obviously I don't have enough kind words for Beatbox House. I think they made really great contributions to the American scene, not just as, you know, artists and, you know, some of the best beatboxers in the world, but also just like what they've done for all of us new kids around, you know? So yeah. All right, so next question. What single battle result shifted the course of history the most? So I actually have a hot take on this one. I think most battles did not actually change history that much. I'll give ZD and Reaps 1 as an example. ZD beat Reaps 1 in the second World Beatbox Championship. That clearly didn't stop Reaps 1 from becoming a legend. Skiller beat Alem in the third World Beatbox Championship. That didn't stop Alem from becoming a legend. What happens when beatboxers lose is that like losses are not definitive a lot of the time. So if a beatboxer's sick and they're meant to be a legend and they just keep participating in the scene and being active, they're going to get their wins eventually. They're going to make a big influence eventually. And it doesn't really change history that much, whether they won or lost. The thing that matters is like if they're good or not. You know what I mean? Like Wing lost versus Pac Max. Clearly Wing's still a legend. Like it really doesn't matter a lot of the time. I mean, obviously it does matter, but like what I mean to say is that if someone is meant to become a legend, it's usually going to happen unless they get like really discouraged after the result of a battle or something like that. So when I answer this question, I'm actually going to lean towards something that resulted in a more cultural change of the beatbox community as a whole. And I actually think Mark Martin versus Trom Bao had a huge cultural impact on beatboxing. It started making people a lot more like, I guess, like scrutinizing of results, of judges, of events. It just changed the way that a lot of people look at events in terms of like competitive integrity and whether things are rigged or not. It started like huge amounts of online harassment, and that created kind of like a counterculture of people like becoming really defensive of beatboxers online. When before, if you look at videos like King of the Dot and stuff like that, the comment sections back then and the comment sections after the Mark Martin versus Trom Bao battle happened are like night and day. I feel like it actually resulted in like a huge cultural shift of what kind of beatboxers started engaging with battles, what people pay attention to in battles. And yeah, in addition to that, it was one of the most like talked about things ever. Like people had theories about whether it was rigged against Trom Bao because he's not American. People were looking at like judges being like, why is like, you know, Mark Martin's then girlfriend at the time judging this? It just led to so many different conversations and so many different like cultural pieces of discourse, I guess, that I think it really did influence it a lot. I don't think it's like a particular battle where like, oh, someone became world champion or something like that that really changed beatboxing that much. It's more like these battles like this that kind of changed the way people look at beatboxing. All right, so I got a series of New York champs questions. So yeah, once again, thank you to everyone who supported that event. There were 3 questions. First one was, how was it? I thought it was fucking fantastic. You know, I was obviously stressed out of my fucking mind the whole week. But I'm just really, really grateful to everyone who came. The competition was amazing. And you know, the venue was talking about like how polite and how kind everyone was. And I also got feedback on how great everyone was to like hang around. And it felt like a safe and comfortable event for everyone. And I'm very grateful for that. I feel like, you know, the community does just as much work for New York champs as like me or Jack, by just like being people who are so positive and you know, encouraging towards like other beatboxers and stuff like that. So I'm just really grateful, and of course I'm going to continue doing this. Yeah, just thank you everyone. Favorite beatboxer, I'm actually going to say Nota, because I thought Nota had a really amazing wild card. This is favorite beatboxer of this particular event. I thought Nota had a really great wild card. So I was a little bummed when he missed it by a little bit because the wild card was very competitive. But he was even better live than he was on the wild card. He had great energy. He had insane techniques. And it was like a really refreshing style, a new name. And I was just really happy that despite him like just missing the wild card, he came anyway, seated really high, and showed that he is just as formidable, if not more formidable, in person. And he showed a lot of crazy techniques that people kept talking about after the event. It was a really, really fresh style to listen to. So I would say Nota for this one. How do you rank New York champs compared to like other orgs or events with other orgs? I don't like to compare myself to other orgs in that way. I will say, and I don't mean to like kind of like sound too braggadocious, I do hold myself and Jack to like a high standard when it comes to these events. So I always try to aim for an event that people can call like a higher level event, a major event, like a more well-organized event. And in this case, especially this year, I did think we got a lot of things right. Of course, there are still more things to improve, and I'm gonna be on top of that for the next time we do New York champs. But I think this time we showed that we are very capable of doing a high-level event that is like, you know, thoroughly organized and able to, you know, like meet a high standard of what a beatbox event should be. So yeah, events to go to until the end of the year that you approve. I'm just gonna list out a bunch of like North American events. if you have like different events in your region that you would encourage people to go to, feel free to comment them below. I really only know very well about the North American events, so I think Canadian Champs and Great North, I'm going to be going to that next. I'm going to be doing like a Canadian video soon, like a Canadian focused video, so hope you guys enjoy that. Aloha, of course, if you're able to make it out to Hawaii, I think that's going to be an amazing event. Pono always does a great job accommodating everyone. Crossroads, of course, American staple. You know, the other, you know, Jack's other events like the Long Island barbecue where, you know, Milan Coldness is going to be chefing it up, as well as Beatnik. I think they're going to do a great job with that. West Coast with Jack and Loopy Loo, I think they're going to do a great job. There's also some new battles coming up. Allegedly one in Chicago, and we're also expecting one in DC in the DMV area, led by the DMV team, you know, Eulacio and Omicron. So I think that's going to be really good. There's going to be regular battles in Boston. I think like Galush and Swerve are the ones that mainly oversee those. Beat the Heat, which is like, you know, overseen by Arizona Beatbox, which is really cool. Like Beat the Heat was like this event back in the early 2010s, and them bringing it back is pretty cool. Vancouver Champs, you know, it's Cymax and Rain, I think, who are mainly working on that one. It's international for the first time. Highly encourage you guys to put in a wild card. And of course, American Champs once Beatbox House gets back to that. Top 10 current solo USA beatboxers. I was dreading answering this question. All right, so I still think number one's Napalm. When he doesn't fuck around with his freestyles too much, I still think he's the highest level solo beatboxer. And then I'm actually going to go with King Inertia on the next one. I think internationally, he just always does well when he's on it. Like King Inertia kind of has like an FIB thing where like he does better internationally than locally. And for this question, I was thinking more internationally, like, oh, if I put all of these American beatboxers in like an international event, who would do really well, like a showcase mixed with like a bracketed event. I think King Inertia always does pretty well in those. And when I say like top 10 current solo USA beatboxers, I'm mainly judging this as like who is currently active that I think would do really well internationally and like get titles and stuff like that in like the current competitive format. So I'm not including a lot of other Beatbox House members like Gene and Kenny Irvin because they don't battle as much anymore. Not as many old Americans like you know, like Bloomer or Raul, who I think would do really well if they continue to battle, but once again, they're not as active anymore. This is like very focused on like current. So for that reason, after Napalm and King Inertia, I would say ZVD, Biscuit, and Anthony. They've got some pretty big wins recently. And I think, you know, ZBD and Alex, they always just do well internationally, and they're always kind of on it. And then I'm going to give one to Anthony as well, a spot to Anthony. I think he is always capable of doing really well. And of course, I pay attention to online battles too a lot. And I think Anthony always does well in online battles, in addition to Biscuit, right? So, and then after that, I have Pono, Decoy, and Match. To me, Pono is just like one of the most underrated American beatboxers ever. I don't know why he always like doesn't receive like good scores like when he's like on like a big stage like GBB and stuff like that. I feel like people are just like not paying attention to how detail oriented he is. I mean, like, Pono is the type of beatboxer where, like, his biggest strength is, like, in a circle jam, right? Like, he is one of those beatboxers where you're, like, jamming with in the street, and that's, like, where he's the best. Like, he stands out compared to anyone else, compared to, like, a big stage. But I still think when he's on a big stage, like, he is very underrated. And, you know, of course, that could be coming from a point of bias. You know, Pono's my friend, but yeah, I just think he still brings it. He always does well, like locally in America too, and he does really well online as well, as you've seen from like the Oceania qualifiers. Decoy as well. When he's like really on it, he's really on it. So Decoy is on there. Match is also really, really good. I think he has the capability of taking out a lot of really strong international competitors, which he's shown in the past. So yeah, that's like my top 8. And then like after this top 8, I think the top 8 is pretty easy, right? And then afterwards, there's like this huge pool of beatboxers who are amazing, that are kind of like could take it against each other on like any day. So, you know, for example, like Conundrum, Vanoa, Brody, Miso, Derek, Shield, Jaleb Zephyr, you know, like just a lot of really, really good people. So I'm picking the next two based on like who has shown me like the most evidence of like being able to beat an international beatboxer. So 9 would be Conundrum. Like obviously like Conundrum has won and lost against like all of the different people that I just mentioned, but I think internationally he always does well, and it's because he's very consistent and is like his style like really stands out, especially like when he's going to like all of these like, you know, different scenes outside of America, and then like they hear how powerful he is, like mixing the like this old school style with like these new techniques. And he's done really well in Latin America. He's done really well in the UK. So I would give number 9 to Conundrum. Number 10, God. I'm not gonna say Vanoa, sorry. Too much recency bias. Brody and Miso, I want to see more opportunities for them internationally. And then Derek, I also need to see more internationally. He's very consistent, but I also need to see him more internationally. And then Shield is kind of like balanced out. Like he's good local, he's good online. Need to see him more internationally as well. Right now, number 10, I think I'm going to give it to Miso. Let's see if I'm proven right. I think Miso, similar to Pono, is very underrated in a lot of ways. I think there are many times where people judge him very fucked and score him way too low on things. But he battles at an extremely, extremely high level, and I just think people haven't seen it yet because he doesn't get as many international opportunities as some of the other guys I've mentioned. So I think Miso is gonna prove himself pretty soon. He is really, really fucking good. Yeah, you guys will just see what I mean. All right, so on to the YouTube question. So next one, most underrated community. I think if you answer anything from Latin America, it's pretty much the right answer. That region is extremely, extremely skilled. They don't get to make it out to live events that often. And for that reason, I think they're very underrated and don't have as much exposure as they deserve. Obviously, some extremely skilled beatboxers like Wally and Zipfire, but even outside of the famous ones, like I feel like every week there's like some new 13-year-old Brazilian kid that's like a tech god. So that this whole region is just absolutely cracked and deserves more recognition. Especially like if you look at their battles online, they're basically like these like fucking like technicality gods like that can't be matched. I'm going to steal Decoy's answer for the specific country. I'm going to say Argentina. They have their own regular national champs every year for as far as I can tell. And they have a lot of really fucking good beatboxers like Desconocido. One of my favorites is Astron. They have Shark. They have Jonah. They have Phenom. Just a lot of really fucking good beatboxers there. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like, you know, soon enough, there's like some sick upcomers that end up making a big impact on the beatbox scene. All right, so next one, what got you started on beatboxing? Third World Beatbox Championship, very interesting to me, especially Skiller and Reeps won. After I watched the battles, I pretty much looked up all of their videos, and I did the same for everyone else in top 16. I was really interested in how different and how amazing every beatboxer style was, but I was especially interested in Reeps 1 and Skiller. And then after that, I watched the 2014 American Beatbox Championships where, you know, Napalm and Gene really stood out to me. So I would say those two competitions had the biggest impact. I started out as a spectator, just very interested in the culture and the battles and the different styles that people had and researching them. And then just like naturally, I became more, you know, interested in learning how to beatbox. And that's kind of what started my journey there. Dream Beatbox event, the Ghost Top 64 battle. Let's get some group stages in there, you know, matching these beatboxers with groups. Let's get some Swiss in there, you know, Swiss format. Let's get some double elimination brackets. Let's get like, you know, the top 64 super fucking skilled solo beatboxers, and everyone will get to battle pretty much fucking everyone. Yeah, I mean, if I had like infinite money, that is totally what I would do with my spare time. And then free everything, you know, free fucking delicious food, free accommodations, free flights. Like, yeah, dream beatbox event. That's what I fucking want. All right. Let's see. Magic wand. If I had a magic wand, what would I change about the beatbox community? And then in tandem with that, there was another question saying, what would I change about standard live events? And actually my answer is not going to be like format related or competition related. It's actually going to be safety related. Like my fucking biggest fear as an organizer is like running an event on like a busy schedule, and then suddenly someone fucking violent shows up, and like I have to deal with that. Like that is actually like one of my biggest fears. Not just like as an organizer. Like if I was attending an event and then that happened, that would be fucking scary, right? And then I hear all these stories. Like I think Kayla told this story publicly quite a few times, where she saw someone getting harassed in an international event. I think it was GBB. And then she tried to intervene, she was going to be an active bystander. And I think she was like literally pushed to the ground when she tried to help. And then I hear all these stories of like, pictures being passed around, and not even just at live events. There's also like online harassment, like scamming, or like messages, or, like just like general like death threats and stuff like that. If there is anything I could change about all these events and stuff like that, I would change the safety aspect around it. And unfortunately, the one time I asked security for help at a beatbox event, they just like yelled at me for some reason and was like, "Why did you let them in?" And I was like, "What the fuck? That's what I'm asking for your help for." They walked in. This could be a potentially dangerous person, and that's why I'm talking to you. Like the security person was so unhelpful. So like legitimate security guards would help too. Usually like, if I have to be the bouncer, or if me and Jack have to be the bouncer together, I guess we have to. Sometimes Beatbox House would help out as well when they're like at like my events and stuff like that with me and Jack's events. Beatbox House might help out as well. But yeah, it's like luckily nothing has ever happened at one of our events, but this is just like one of my greatest fears, is like this happening at one of my events or one of the events that I'm attending. And from what I can tell, it's happened a lot at big events too, like ones with huge crowds and stuff like that. So just safety, I think it would be like way better for the community if there were that could be upheld to a greater standard. And of course, I'm not even getting into the rabbit hole that is like the fucking like children. I feel disgusting just saying that, like children lovers in the community, which for some reason there seem to be a lot of, or SA people. Don't even get me started on this video. I'm getting disgusted just like saying that out loud. But like, yeah, if we, that also does not help anything at all with the beatbox community. Yeah, just. All right. On to the next question. So I got two questions about organizing. Good segue, I guess. Logistics and events. Like someone just asked me like more like, my input on logistics and events. And then someone asked me a specific question, which is like, they want to, like how would they get started like fostering a beatbox community and holding events in a city where like none of that has like existed thus far? And I think that's a really great question. So I'll start with the logistics piece. And I think like something that I want to talk about as an organizer is like how much money and how much time it takes. It is very rare that a beatbox event goes green. When you're doing this shit, you're doing it for passion, right? You're doing it because like you want to give back to this community and you want to foster the greatest art form that has ever existed, which is beatboxing, right? So transparently, two of the New York champs, I lost $2,000 on. It's fine, I'll make it back in no time. And then one of the events, I think I got like $400 in the green, and I think I ended up giving it most of it away anyway, to like people who like really helped out, like went above and beyond. And I think like a lot of the time when I've worked with like I would say like my less effective collaborators, a lot of the time they don't realize how much time and money it takes, and they like make it a second priority, and those are some of the least helpful people I've worked with. So I would say like when it comes to organizing, the people that I want to work with need to have like these intrinsic motivations that push them to sacrifice their own time and money. Otherwise, I don't want anything to do with like these people, and I don't want to see them organizing. I think to be an organizer, you have to be intrinsically motivated, and you have to be someone that is like benevolent to other people. Otherwise, it's just like you're wasting everyone's fucking time. I don't like people who go into events with the idea of like, I must make a profit. I'm gonna do this for my ego. I'm gonna try to like use this event to like forward myself, or I'm not gonna, everything's gonna go right. Like this is like, that's just not the right mentality. Like when you're organizing an event, you need to be in like like it's called servant leadership. It's like one of those fucking concepts you learn in leadership class. It's you need to be willing to serve and give the people like what they need and like the best things for them and prioritize other people. So those are the values I hold to myself and like the standards that I hold myself to, like when it comes to organizing an event. And I will say for the second question, which was like, how do you like start organizing in a city where like it hasn't existed? I would say start small. I am not the best person to answer this question because I live in New York, and I swear to God, like New York, it's like 10 times easier to get attendance because the city is so densely populated, and obviously there's going to be a lot of fucking beatboxers in New York. If not in New York, like adjacent, like obviously people can come in from Philly, people can come in from like, you know, Boston or New Jersey or Connecticut. A lot of close East Coast states can just come to the battle anyway. So attendance is a lot easier when it comes to New York. And then like, I feel like people who would be really good at answering this question might be like Pono, who started this whole community in Hawaii, or maybe like Arizona Beatbox. There's somehow a lot of beatboxers in Arizona. And I think it's because of like the first Fridays that they do that get everyone together. So I would say start with something social, start with like a jam, start with like a hangout and get a vibe for how many beatboxers there are. And then maybe those beatboxers might know other beatboxers. And then all of a sudden you have like these large gatherings. And then if you find out that there's a lot of beatboxers in your town, and you can like pool together resources, or you think like there's like some momentum going, or like everyone will be really supportive, then that's when you can like look towards like having like bigger events, like maybe like a big show to start off. And then if you think you could really do a competition. I think just like doing things in order, like start small and then like try to like gradually move up, is the right way to do it, especially because when you start small, that might give you more time to like scout out venues and like vibes in the city. Know like if there's any like problematic like community members or community members who are really willing to support, because New York Champs is founded on a lot of people who are very supportive, like the people who volunteer every year, other leaders in the community. Beatbox House always ends up helping out. So yeah, like I think just having a supportive community at first is the biggest priority. And then, all right, we are finally at this point. I got like, there was this one comment on the thing, and I knew I was eventually going to have to talk about this. It was like 10 questions in a row about D-Lo and the upcoming GBB. So I'm going to go by them one by one. I'll probably start a separate recording because I want to think about my answers a little bit more on these. But yeah, like 10 questions upcoming on just D-Lo. So let's go into that. All right, so let's go into these D-Lo questions. So just a note, I'm gonna be putting like the questions and stuff in one of the corners with like snipping tool, because I wrote like 1 sentence points for each of these questions just to like remind me what they were, but they were in the form of paragraphs. So I might be paraphrasing them incorrectly, so you can like reference them through the screenshots and stuff. But yeah, I'm just gonna go through these one by one and kind of just like give my general thoughts on the whole like D-Lo upcoming GBB sort of thing, like based on each of the paragraphs. Yeah, we'll see where the discussion leads us. So the first part was like overall competitors, like how do I think the overall competitors like fare against him? So someone already asked me like who I think will win GBB. I said River or Footbox G, and then I think I got a message saying like, dude, you're like the first person I've seen that hasn't said D-Lo. I really think it's either going to be River or Footbox G. I think D-Lo still has a good chance, but I don't know if I would favor him against those two or Pac Max. And even then, like I think D-Lo has a favorable chance against most of the other competitors, but I can also see a lot of them potentially beating him. Like for example, like Kaji or King Inertia. I think those guys could potentially pop off on him. You know, there's like this whole like glaze, like, oh, D-Lo is unbeatable. Like D-Lo is like the greatest beatboxer of all time, like propelled by places like r/beatbox and stuff. I think this massive hype around him is like pretty out of nowhere and feels like almost kind of parasocial, in the sense that like people are just like worshiping him like the second coming of Jesus, when he's a battler just like everyone else, a beatboxer like everyone else. And I feel like it's really hard to be unbeatable in a competition. Like the reason why D'Lo is seen as unbeatable is because he won like 2 competitions across like 2019 and 2021, like without taking any losses, which is such a weird way to look at it. Like, yeah, he won 2 battles across the time span of 2 years. Alem, Alexinho, Napalm, and Pac-Max, even in the previous year, have had longer and more impressive win streaks. And then people are saying like D'Lo's GBB 2019 run is legendary. To me, his legendary run was World Beatbox Classic. That was D'Lo at his best. It was in 2017 and 2018. That was like D'Lo in 2017 and 2018 is one of the best beatboxers I've ever seen. I'm hesitant to say the same thing about his like unbeatable form that people are talking about in like 2019 and 2021. And I think like the reason why there's so much hype around him is not just because he's D'Lo, but because he hasn't competed in 5 years. So I think people are just like treating the last 5 years like he's suddenly gonna like come back and just like whoop everyone. I think that's what people want to see. That's like why people are saying it. But in terms of how realistic it is, especially against someone like River or Footbox G, I don't know if it's that realistic. So there was also this point, the second paragraph was about like, will the massive hype buildup work against him? I think so, because like, I feel like people overemphasize how important GBB is. In my opinion, D'Lo has a lot of legendary feats before GBB. And like, he was at his like most accomplished and his most active before GBB, but for some reason people focus on his GBB run. I could probably go like way into it because I think I've watched like almost every single D'Lo video, like every D'Lo battle, like almost all of them. So I feel like I'm pretty familiar with his journey, to be honest. Unconscious bias in judging D'Lo. Do I think that exists? Yes, I think it exists. I think like people were already being pretty contentious about his wildcard placements, you know, in tag teams and stuff like that. I don't think those placements are that bad this time around, but I do think they were a little bit higher than where I would have placed them in each of the respective categories. D'Lo did message me saying that he was going into it with like a for fun mindset, like just seeing what he can do and like doing his best and like, you know, just trying to have fun with it. And it seems that he said that to other people as well. Do I think that is sustainable because of all the pressure around him? That depends on him, but unfortunately, because of how many parasocial people there are that will hold it against him if he loses, I think maybe it's not sustainable. Once again, I think there's so many unrealistic expectations around D'Lo that if he loses, people are going to take it as like this big thing, when in fact, it's like extremely normal to lose a battle. GBB is just like one battle. It doesn't need to be like overemphasized so hard. What is the strategy to beat him? I think D'Lo's strength is versatility. So I think like the way to beat him is just like emphasize your strength as much as possible. So for example, King Inertia, I think he should just focus on his strength as much as possible if he battles D'Lo. Same with Kaji, same with River, same with Footbox. If any of them go against him, I think just emphasize the things that they do really well instead of like trying to like fight D'Lo's game, which is like D'Lo is like, in my opinion, like his style is like he's a little bit good at everything and he's one of the most innovative sound creators. So I think like when going against him, they have to like emphasize the sounds that they're really good at and emphasize the things that they're really good at to like be able to beat D'Lo. What if D'Lo doesn't win? Once again, I think it really doesn't matter to his legacy. I think he's still one of the best beatboxers of all time. Really only the parasocials will care. I have this like list in my head, and maybe I'll make a separate video of it, of like the best beatboxers of all time. And D'Lo is in like my like, I'd say like my like 5 to 20 range, or like 6 to 20 range, I would say. In my opinion, the best beatboxer of all time is Reaps One. Not skill wise, but like in terms of like overall skill wise, I would say Collapse, just to get it out there. But yeah, D'Lo, I would put like somewhere between 6 to 20, probably on the higher end of that. I have like all these names in mind of like the greatest beatboxers of all time. If you guys want to see a video about me talking about that, let me know. But yeah. And then there was like this last point about Codfish, like there's some similarities with Codfish. I think Codfish is like an even worse example of how like these like parasocial overrating. I think Codfish quickly became one of the most influential beatboxers ever because of the views he got and his run in GBB 2018. But like, let's be real, like to me, what makes like one of the best beatboxers is like they compete in everything. Just like how D'Lo has competed in like all these different like, you know, competitions like European Masters, Freak of Beat, Vocal Total. And that's like what part of what makes him good is that he's so active in everything. And I think that's what made Alem good. That's what made Napalm good. That's what made like, you know, Skiller and Reefs One good. It was like they did a little bit of everything, not just in battles, but like the showcases, the artistry, contributions to the scene, like with their like style and stuff like that. And for Codfish, he did really well at GBB, and he's only competed at Swiss Beatbox events and Australia. I would like to see Codfish compete at more events that are outside of Australia and Swiss Beatbox events, because he doesn't feel like omnipresent in the way the other goats have been. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the other goats have done everything, and Codfish is mainly known as one of the best because of the quality of his GBB performances and the quality of his showcases, when in reality, I feel like his accolades don't have that much range. I would still put Codfish on maybe like the lower end of like my best beatboxers ever, like maybe like closer to 20 in like that 6 to 20 range. But I actually do think Codfish is a little bit overrated. I'm not gonna lie. And not just because like he's lost battles recently. I've always thought this. And mainly because he just like has this reputation from like a few good performances, and he like protects his win rate by like not participating that much. So he like gets known as a legend because he's not participating that much, and then like curiosity around him builds, like, oh, what if he competed this year? What if he competed that year? Like the way people assess the best beatboxers ever is like so weird. It's almost like the less someone competes, the better they're considered a lot of the time. And I see that with Dilo and Codfish, when I feel like it should be the opposite. Like the more you compete, the better you should be considered, even if you're taking losses. And that's why I would favor someone like River and Footbox G, who have competed in like fucking everything that the sun has ever touched. You know, so yeah, that's my whole take. It probably didn't make much sense, but I hope you get some of the points that I'm making. Is like, I think like people assess the best beatboxer kind of wrong. And for me, this GBB, I think it's either River or Footbox G that's going to win. I'm slightly favoring River because like I feel like River is able to touch some things related to like the emotions of beauty in his routine, or he just has like some unconventional things going on with the way he creates his beats that I think will really impress the judges. If not, I think Footbox G, being one of the most skilled beatboxers to ever exist, will come through. There's also a chance that, you know, like, Dilo might still win. And if that happens, maybe r/Beatbox is fucking right. Maybe you guys are all right, and Dilo is actually just like fucking the second coming of Jesus. We'll see. But yeah, that is all the questions. And yeah, let me know if you guys want me to do another one of these like Q&As. I also have some like, you know, specific topic videos coming up. I'm probably gonna make a few more videos on organizing, a few more videos on just like, you know, talking about like beatbox scene in general. But yeah, thanks guys for tuning in and for contributing to questions. Hope you guys enjoyed this one.